And we are live. Hello to all my BC WrestlePod nerds out there. And welcome to another episode of the Takedown Troupe, your weekly TNA Wrestling post show here at BC WrestlePod. My name is Mikey. I am El Jefe of BC WrestlePod. I run the ones and twos, and I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And I will be running us through this past Thursday's episode of TNA Wrestling. The rest of my crew has the night off due to their own obligations, as well as, Mother Nature taking out the internet for some of us. So I'm going to be here and I'm going to be doing a quick post show here of TNA Wrestling for all the stuff that went down and to kind of talk about everything that transpired on this March 19th episode of TNA Wrestling. But before we get into all of that, I got to do the intro bit real quickly so that way we can just get into the action. So, YouTube, Twitch, and Kick is where you can find most of our lives. We pretty much go live every day of the week, most of the time. And YouTube also houses our edited videos on the main channel. So if you want to look for a more condensed version of those lives, well, there they go. If you're looking for something more manageable, we do report cards and clips of our shows and predictions and previews on the social medias at BC WrestlePod, which is fantastic, where you can find us there. We also have some merchandise at our shop, bcwrestlepodshop.fourthwall.com. And last but certainly not least, we have a coffee bot where that helps us keep the lights on and helps us pay for all these pay-per-views and streaming services that we use to cover all the stuff in professional wrestling. So ever so often that little bot will be popping up in the chat, but if you feel are not financially obligated to do so, you being here is enough for us and we love you for it. Alrighty, so let's get into this. This episode of TNA personally was interesting to say the least. I'm a bit confused as to where we're going and for matches that have yet to be announced. I have some questions about matches that have been made so far. But honestly, we're going to see how this rolls out. So, let's get into it. So let's just get into it, shall we? We kick things off this week with our opening match of the night, which sees Frankie Kazarian, the king of TNA, taking out the hometown man, which is just Cody Deaner in a mask, and we love him for it. Now, this has been an interesting development in terms of feud going on. Hometown man has been kind of saving, the roster from Frankie Kazarian and by proxy AJ Francis over the last couple of weeks. And Hometown Man wanted to get a piece of the action, and he wanted to fight Frankie Kazarian as payback for what Frankie did to him last week and the week before that. And so this match was made. The in-ring was pretty solid. I will say Frankie Kazarian, as much as his character right now annoys me, and it's not necessarily my favorite, because this man is a veteran of the professional wrestling sport, his in-ring is never a question for me. He always does some really good stuff and is very solid, quite the consummate professional. And then, of course, even though Hometown Man is the new alias for Mr. Cody Deaner, Cody Deaner, also a veteran of the business, it was also very solid here, too. What I did appreciate about this match in particular is when you pair up Frankie Kazarian's veteran instincts with the Hometown Man's more comedic approach to things. This was a pretty fun match. I really actually enjoyed this. Now, Hometown Man does pick up the victory over Frankie Kazarian, and that is because when AJ Francis tried to help out Frankie and to take down the Hometown Man, it backfired, which allowed Hometown Man here, excuse me, been a long day, to pick up the victory against Frankie. Now, I will say, TNA production, we got to talk about this really quickly because this was weird. The lights go out and then they come back on, and Frankie and AJ Francis are beating a Hotel Man. They go off again, they come back on, and then Elijah's in the ring, but like they turned it on too quickly, so Elijah couldn't get into place to hit what he needed to. So TNA production, I love you, but we gotta figure this out, man. Like honestly, it's been long enough that you should have figured out how to do all this stuff by now. But Elijah coming to the rescue of the hometown man, as hometown man did for him last week. And we have a match officially made for Sacrifice, which I'm going to talk about at towards the tail end of the show. But for the opening contest, this wasn't the worst thing I've seen, and in fact, I really did enjoy it. Like I said before, when you pair up Frankie Kazarian's veteran ability with the hometown man's, aka Cody Deaner, and his veteran ability with his comedic chops, it was a very solid and a very fun match to open up this night in Atlanta. So we go from the front of the house after this match to the back of the house. We are backstage, of course, with our correspondent and boots to the ground interviewer, Gia Miller, who is backstage interviewing the Angel Warriors, which is former TNA Knockouts champion Liang Li and Zaya Brookside. And Gia mentions to Lee that she has a she has a contractual rematch clause after being the former TNA Knockouts world champion and not having gotten that rematch quite yet. And she says that and Lee says that she will get back to the title in due time. But tonight, her focus is to team with Zaya and to be able to take on the team of the current TNA Knockouts champion, NXT's Ariana Grace, and Danny Luna, who also has claim to the title. And so once they are dealing with this tag team match, then Lee can focus on getting that title back from Ariana Grace. More to come on all of this when we get to the match itself. But from here, we go once again to one of the locker room areas. And again, I promise I'm not going to keep bringing this up, but TNA production, this lighting situation was not the best. But Santino Marella is backstage, and the suit Daria Ray comes in, and she is talking to Santino about what to do with Santino's trying to figure out what to do with the TNA World Championship, the men's singles title. But Daria says, we can focus on that later. We got to talk about the women's knockouts division. And I'm like, for once, Daria, I agree, because we got to figure out what's going on. Daria mentions that Danny Luna technically is still owed a championship match. Danny Luna was supposed to challenge for the title at TNA Genesis, the pay-per-view back in January. But due to visa issues, she was not allowed to she wasn't able to come to the United States, and she is still owed her championship match. While Santino also makes a case for Liang Li, as she has a contractual rematch clause, and she also deserves a championship match as well. So after a little bit of back and forth between Santino and Daria, Santino makes it official to Daria's chagrin that at Sacrifice, we will be getting a triple threat match for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. Of course, Ariana Grace is defending the title against both Liang Li and Danny Luna. And all I have to say for this one in particular is that if Danny Luna does not walk out of Sacrifice as TNA World Champion, TNA, we're gonna have some fighting words. I think Danny Luna is a big enough reason as to put the strap on her, because right now we need a tour de force in the knockouts division. We need somebody to run a train, so to speak, on the knockouts division, and to kind of we need a good monster. And Danny Luna fits that monster role very, very well. I love the presentation that she's given with her entrance, with the chain and pulling the cameraman toward as she's pulling the chain closer to her, which is really good. I love this attitude that we're getting for her now that she's leaning more heel. And I do like the change in character and the aesthetics of it all. Now, do I want to see Liang Li also get it back too? Yes. Honestly, I just want it off of Ariana Grace, because once again, and I've said this before, and I don't want to go too deep into it because I've let my feelings be known in detail in previous episodes of the Takedown Troupe post show. But I don't understand why every couple of months we strap the TNA championship onto an NXT star, especially when they don't defend that thing that often. I have seen people tell me that, oh, it's, about the prestige, it's getting eyes on TNA, but I don't believe that for a second anymore. At first, I did when we strapped it up on JC, but then you had Kalani, who really, Jordan get it, but he didn't really do much with that title run outside of two defenses. Now you have it on Ariana Grace, and she's only had one title defense, I believe, or not even one, or even zero at this point. I'm just really tired of NXT getting the women's championship because we don't like Trick Williams held the TNA World Championship for a while, and then Mike Santana was finally able to take it off of him at Bound for Glory. And we have yet to see another NXT male take the title for TNA. So how come are doing it to the women's title is what I'm trying to figure out. Now, it should also be known that we have discussed this before on our post show here that the knockouts division is kind of running on fumes as there is not a lot of options to have a tag team division for the knockouts, and our singles competitors is also very thin as well for the world knockouts world title, right? Now, all that being said, I do think this match is going to be a lot of fun at Sacrifice, which is happening next Friday, which should be very fun. And we'll see what happens. Predictions will be made on our post show next Friday, which will also be happening at the same time as Sacrifice. So y'all know how that goes. But I'm excited. This should be a pretty good match, nonetheless. After that segment, we get the in-ring debut of Mr. Elegance, who, of course, is taking on Action Mike Jackson. Anybody who's not familiar with Action Mike Jackson is a veteran of the sport. The man is pushing 70, which is crazy. And this match went as of what I expected. Of course, you have Mr. Elegance dominating the majority of the match, and he also is, being disrespectful to the Action Mike Jackson, as he is the veteran. He is the elder statesman, if you will. And Mr. Elegance does win this match. So, again, this is more so getting Mr. Elegance in the ring, as well as continuing the Elegance brand being disrespectful to wrestling legends. After the match, though, is when things kind of get interesting because Mr. Elegance and then M and Heather by Elegance with George Iceman, the concierge, begin to continue to attack Action Mike Jackson, which then prompts knockout legend and Hall of Famer OBD to come out and beat up on the Elegance girls. And then she and Action Mike Jackson pour margarita mix all over Mr. Elegance. It seems that we're setting up a now, whether this happens at Sacrifice or if this happens at Rebellion, we are setting up a Elegance brand versus the Legends of TNA / Legends of Wrestling. So I think we are going to get Heather and M by Elegance with Mr. Elegance teaming up against the team of Action Mike Jackson, ODB, and Mickey James. We're probably going to get a mixed trios match. So, do I necessarily think that's the best match? Maybe not really. I'm leaning towards not really. But will it be entertaining? Yeah, I think so. But we have one more show to go. We shall see if we're going to get that match at all. But this match segment went the way that it was supposed to, and we move on with our lives because after this, we head backstage where we see the system and they talk about, they put Mike Santana and Leon Slater and the Hardys on notice. They're basically saying in this promo that they're coming for all the gold. And specifically, Brian Myers and Bear Bronson are coming for the Hardys in that tag team championship match. So, of course, later in the show, Brian Myers is going to be facing Moose as Moose is working his way through the system. Last week, he beat Cedric Alexander, who was just chilling in the back here in this slide, in an Atlanta street fight. And so this episode, he was going to be fighting Brian Myers. And it was at this point after, we'll get into it, that we got another match made later in the show with the System and Moose, but we're going to talk about that when we get there. So again, this promo served its purpose. It was the you better watch your back because we're coming for the tag team titles type of promo. We all know how those usually go. I love Bear Bronson. I'm always going to be his biggest advocate and fan. I know some people are not too big on him. I love him. He is great. And Bear, I'm really happy to see you in TNA on weekly television. Y'all, love you, man. Love you. So after that, we get into our next match of the evening, which was a really good tag team match between the Angel Warriors and Danny Luna and TNA Knockouts champion and NXT star Ariana Grace. This match was really fun in the sense that we got some really good tag team action from the Angel Warriors, who are working pretty good and pretty well as a tag team. And then on the other side, you had Danny Luna doing all the work, being the powerhouse that she is. And then Ariana Grace is just chilling. She's not doing much. And I was just like, we love a good chicken shit heel, so to speak. Again, I thought this was a really fun match. This definitely was more of a 2-on-1 than an actual tag team match. But as the Angel Warrior was getting close and towards the tail end of the match, they were ready to hit their finisher for the win. But NXT star and Ariana Grace's fiance Stacks kind of distracted Liang Li a little bit, which caused her to kind of take him out on the outside, which then would allow Danny Luna to take advantage and to pick up the win on for her team by pinning Zaya Brookside. And then Ariana Grace comes into the ring celebrating like she did all the stuff. And Danny Luna's just like, let's be real. We know what this is. I'm coming for this title. Ariana Grace is like not really having a good time with that because of the fact that she is going to be defending this title against both Liang Li and Danny Luna at Sacrifice. So I thought this was a really fun match. This definitely was more of a handicap match, 2-on-1, with Ariana Grace just kind of being there. But she is the chicken shit heel, and she's going to keep this title. And she's going to keep running with that. She is the best champion, and she'll be a fighting champion, but she's really going to run away because she knows that she ain't shit. But, what do I know? But after this match, we get a really good promo from Leon Slater. Wow. Sorry, I want to apologize because it made it sound like he doesn't do good promos. Let me reiterate, this was a really passionate promo from Leon Slater. The last 2 weeks ago, he was attacked by his challenger for his title at Sacrifice, Eric Young, who tried to break his neck in the process. And Leon Slater has some choice words, calling Eric Young a bald bitch. And so Leon Slater says is that now you have problems with me. I'm here to be a fighting champion, but what you did, you tried to break my neck. So now I'm going to prove to you why I'm the youngest in charge. And if a fight is what you want, a fight is what you're going to get. I really don't want to see Eric Young beat Leon Slater at Sacrifice. I really hope Leon beats Eric Young. I don't want to see Eric Young as X Division champion. I think Leon Slater still has a little bit of gas in the tank as champion, and I would love to see him beat everyone on the roster and then cash in option C and become TNA World Champion for a little bit. But this was a really passionate promo from Leon Slater. I will say, despite Eric Young's cleanse gimmick and shtick, I do think that the match itself on paper should be really, really good. Again, Eric Young has been wrestling in this business forever, and I think he works very well with a lot of different types of wrestlers, especially our X Division style wrestlers. And Leon Slater's amazing because I also love him and he's fantastic. But I'm a little worried that there is a slight possibility that Eric Young will take the X Division championship off of Leon, but I hope that is not the case. If there's any going to be championships that are going to switch hands, I hope it's Ariana Grace losing that title to Danny Luna, preferably, but I will also take Liang Li. But I don't want to see Eric Young as X Division champion. It could be fun, but who knows? But good stuff from Leon Slater in this promo. I really love it. And I'm looking forward to seeing him at Sacrifice against Eric Young. This is what I was alluding to earlier when I was talking about the promo with the system backstage. They announced before the Brian Myers and Moose match that Moose will be taking on Edward Edwards here at Sacrifice, which we all knew that Moose was going to make his way through the system, beat Cedric Alexander, Brian Myers, and next week he'll probably beat Bear Bronson. And then he'll be fighting Eddie at Sacrifice, where I foresee Alicia joining Eddie and Moose losing here. So should be interesting. But After this, though, when we get that announcement, we get into Moose and Brian Myers. And not gonna lie, I wasn't expecting us to go 20 minutes, but damn, we barely didn't even hit the 2 minute mark because this was a quick one. Bruce comes out, Brian Myers comes out, the system out of the ring. Santino comes out, he kicks the system out as the system is backing up to the ring, and Brian Myers is distracted by like, oh man, my homies are getting kicked out. Moose capitalizes and wins in less than 2 minutes. I was like, the disrespect to Brian Myers was crazy, but it makes a lot of sense. Um, Moose is just like, I'm not here to play. Y'all know that I want Eddie, so I will go through everybody if I have to. So Moose picks up the victory here in this quick match. Next week we are getting Moose and Bear Bronson. I will, go down with the full card of what's going to happen next Thursday later in the show. But I will say this was pretty much a squash match. And I mean, it served its purpose because it's telling the story of Moose having to go through the other members of the system before he can fight the final boss of Eddie Edwards. But I was a little, oh, okay, well, that kind of sucks. I wasn't expecting them to go full 10 minutes or anything, but damn, 2 minutes is crazy. But again, Moose is the victor here in this quick match, and he moves on next week to face Bear Bronson, who will hopefully be his toughest challenge yet. After that match, though, we get another great pre-tape vignette with Rosemary. Rosemary right now is currently on a mission as she is traveling through the undead worlds and the underbelly of the TNA Wrestling locker, as well as the rest of the world. She is trying to collect the seven deadly sins, and she here is going to collect the seven deadly sin of envy. So she and Allie, of course, formerly known as the Bunny in AEW, are here in the undead realm, and who should have something that Rosemary needs but TNA Hall of Famer himself, Raven. So I love the stuff that they are doing with Rosemary. I really hope this is all Rosemary's controlling and creative when doing this. This is a lot of fun. And Rosemary's on a mission to try to revive the bunny, aka Allie. So Raven gives her what she needs. So Rosemary now has the embodiment of the deadly sin of envy. And I love this kind of stuff. I've been wondering what's been happening with Rosemary. I know she's been on and off with injury all the last year, but we really didn't get to see too much of her. Now I'm excited, and I really hope this is leading up to something really cool for Rosemary and Allie. And I would like to kind of see Rosemary get one more title run. She's been wrestling for a very long time, and I do think that her in ring career will be coming to a close in the next 2 or 3 years, is what I'm guessing. So I would like to see Rosemary get one more big one before she starts, the goodbye tour and hangs up her boots. But this was great stuff. This was a lot of fun. Wrestling doesn't need to always be serious. And I do like that we are kind of bringing back what made TNA really fun, which is the undead realm and the creativity of what wrestling characters can be. And I think Rosemary does an excellent job with this. And I'm excited. I'm tuning in. I can't wait to see what the next sin she's gonna go after and who's it gonna be. It's a hoot and a holler. I've been really loving this pre-tape stuff with Rosemary, and I can't wait. And I will be tuning in next week or for the next one to see where she goes next. But we have to leave Rosemary for a little bit because then we get into another pretty good match. I actually really like it. We get Jada Stone versus Elena Black. So, of course, anybody who is not familiar with Elena Black, this is the former Cora Jade of NXT. And Jada Stone is newly signed to TNA. She was signed about 2 months ago, towards the beginning of this year. And honestly, for me personally, I have talked about it before on this show and on our channel that I really think there's something special about Jada Stone. I think her charisma and her in ring is a lot of fun to watch. I think her personality and her character is also a lot of fun. There's a couple of spots within the delivery of her promos that could be a little worked on, but I mean, anyone and everyone can always learn something to grow from it. But I'm really becoming more and more of a big fan of Jada Stone. And of course, I'm a big fan of Elena Black. I really do like Elena, and I think she's fantastic. And I thought this was a really good match. I think definitely this is getting Elena more wins and kind of slowly pushing her up the card, so to speak. I do foresee Elena becoming TNA Knockouts World Champion within the year. as she is here for a year on a year contract. But I would also really love Jada Stone. I thought she did a really good in this match. And like I said, Jada has been really fun that she's gotten to do a lot of mixed tag stuff. Like she teamed up with Elijah previously against Order 4. And Jada and Tasha Steeles are still fighting it out, which is exactly what happens after the match. So Elena Black wins this match. Order 4 come out and they try to beat up Jada, but our TNA International Champion, Trey Miguel, comes out with a chair to even the odds. And it's Jada's just teaming up with everyone at this point, and I kind of here for it. So we will talk more about Jada and Trey later in the show. But as far as this match goes, Elena Black wins over Jada. Both women did really great. And I did think this was one of the better matches of the night, in my personal opinion. We cut backstage where we see the Diamond Collective, which is Tessa Blanchard, Victoria Crawford, and Mila Moore. And they're talking a copious amounts of shit, so to speak. And Tessa is laying claim to the TNA Knockouts World Champion. In comes Jody Threat with her backup of and Harley Hudson, and of course, her partner in crime. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on names here? Anyway, oh my gosh, it's gonna kill me. Why am I blanking on names? Anywho, so Jody Threat rolls up in with her backup, and she challenges the Diamond Collective to a trios match next week. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna kill me until I remember her name, but we have Jody and Harley, and anyways, I will remember it. I promise I will. But at least we get more knockouts division action, so that should be a lot of fun. After that backstage segment, though, our commentary team let us know that we got two more matches made for Sacrifice. It is going to be Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steeles of Order 4 taking on the team of TNA International Champion Trey Miguel and Jada Stone. So Jada gets a pay-per-view match, so I'm excited for her. I think this match is going to be really good. And I do like it that we're seeing Tasha wrestle more and more. Hopefully, she will come back and be a singles competitor in the TNA Knockouts division, but this should be a really fun match. But also, we get the our second match made for Sacrifice on this episode, which is Elijah and Hometown Man teaming up against AJ Francis and Frankie Kazarian. I've noticed that Sacrifice has gotten a lot of tag team matches made so far, and I'm not mad at it because we're trying to get a lot of people on the roster. But we have these two matches, and then of course we have Mike Santana and Steve Macklin for the TNA World Championship, and then Leon Slater and Eric Young for the X Division Championship. And I'm pretty sure we'll get more matches made next week on the Go Home show. So should be interesting. Well, it's about that time. We are about to hit it into the main event. So, but we got a preview of what is going down all next week. So this should be a really, really exciting time. So, of course, first of all, we have Mustafa Ali taking on BDE. BDE has been really, really fun. And he is fantastic. I think he adds something really fresh to the TNA division. And so we're going to see Mustafa Ali take on BDE. Then we have our trios match, which is Jody Threat, Harley Hudson, and Mila Grace. I remembered it, thank goodness. Taking on the Diamond Collective. Of course, that is Tessa Blanchard, Victoria Crawford, and Mila Moore. Then we get a singles match with Jeff Hardy taking on Brian Myers of the System. Then we also got more system action as Moose will be taking on the final member before his stop in his match against Eddie Edwards at Sacrifice. So it will be Moose and Bear Bronson next week. And then the system is also in action still. So all the members of the system are in action next week, as it is going to be Eddie Edwards and Cedric Alexander taking on the team of Mike Santana and Leon Slater. So very interesting matches. And I think next week's episode is going to be a lot of fun. So this should be good. Alrighty, though. So we are heading into the home stretch. So we are about to talk about the last two segments, our main event match, and then the segment that ended the show. So this is our last call. If you have not done so already, you can definitely check out our social medias in our link tree, or you can check out our merchandise at bcwrestlepodshop.fourthwall.com, and I am going to be posting those right now. So again, those links will be in the chat across all the places that we are streaming currently right now. So feel free to check those out as we get into our final match and the go home segment of this episode. So our main event match for this particular episode of TNA is a tag team match that sees Ryan and Nick Nemeth, the Nemeth brothers, taking on Vince and Duchess of the Righteous. The righteous are coming. The righteous are here. This is like, did you hear? Did you hear the good news? The righteous are coming or are here. I like the righteous. I really, really do. Always have been following them forever. Love Vincent and Dutch. And honestly, I kind of like the Nemeth brothers together as a tag team. Now, as far as this match goes, I thought this was okay. This wasn't necessarily like a barn burner of a match, but I didn't think it was inherently too bad. I think everyone played their part very, very well. And I'm very surprised to see the Nemesis get a win here over the Righteous. But then, given of what we've seen so far with the Righteous and the Hardys and the Nemesis, I think that we are setting up the Nemesis to take on the Hardys at some point for the titles. But with the system being number one contenders for that, we might turn it into a triple threat match, or who knows? We might end up making it a fatal four way at Rebellion. Who knows what's going to happen in this tag team division? But again, I thought the match itself was fine for what it was. I think Nick Nemeth is the equivalent to Shawn Michaels and oversells everything, which is not a bad thing. I like that. Vince and Dutchin are really fun, but I do think that they lacked a little bit of cohesion with each other, and I think the chemistry was just a tiny bit off between the Righteous and the Nemeths. But the Nemeths pick up the victory here with them beating the Righteous. They are now on the path towards the Hardys. But again, with Brian Myers and Bear Bronson being number one contenders, we're going to see how that all plans out. Are we going to get a triple threat at Sacrifice? Are we going to get the system versus the Hardys at Sacrifice? And then we'll go to the Nemesis? Who knows? And then, of course, Nick Nemeth is also still running around here with this Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy. So that's in the background. Who knows what's happening with all of that? So anything can happen within the year of our Lord and Savior 2026. But again, my final thoughts here is that the match itself was fine. I don't think it was inherently to write home about, but I did enjoy it for what it was, and it continues to propel the Nemeth into the tag team scene, and they are on a head-on collision with the Hardys as well as our number one contenders. Now, what ended the show, though, was this sit-down face-to-face with Mike Santana and Steve Macklin. I also thought this was fine for what it was. I will say that this is Mike Santana's second sit down with an opponent of his. And while I do think this one was solid and it got the point across, and it definitely continues to build us up towards sacrifice between these two, I will say I think Mike Santana's sit down with Mustafa Ali leading into Rebellion last year was probably a lot better, only due to the content of what it was being discussed and how each character or each wrestler was portraying their character, and what they were talking about in terms of dialogue was written more better. But I do think this was solid. Here we get a little bit more. Mike Santana learns a little bit more about Macklin and his service as a military personnel. So again, I would like to put out there that shout out to all the men and women and everyone in between who is in the armed forces, because they do a job that nobody else really wants to do, and I appreciate them. And as a child of someone who is a former Marine, I know what that all entails and what it takes. So Steve Macklin has my respect in that regards. But I do think that his reasoning for why he's is this way and kind of using it is a little bit of a stretch. I see where he's going with this, and there are some points in when what you was saying to Mike Santana that I do kind of see where he's coming from, and I understand. But I do think that it is a little bit weird. Now, Mike Santana I will say, I think Mike was a bit more in control of this whole entire sit down, because he doesn't undervalue Macklin's service as a veteran, but he also knows that all these things that Macklin is doing at Rebellion. When that bell rings, Mike Santana tells Macklin he needs all that talk, and you better be able to back it up because when that bell rings, it is time for action. And so Mike Santana slides a drink over, as Mike Santana, of course, is 3 years sober, and he gives the drink to Macklin, and he leaves the room with Macklin just sitting here as the show goes off the air. I do personally think that, well, let me go back to the picture real quick. I do personally think that the build to this match has not necessarily been my favorite, but as we get closer to Sacrifice, I do know that Mike and Macklin are going to deliver some really good stuff in the ring. So it gets a little bit of grace. I just wish that there was more to this. And again, we might get more next Thursday, and I'm just talking out of my butt, but we'll see what happens on the go home show next Thursday. And that's going to be it for me tonight here at Takedown Troop. I'm really kind of proud of myself, not gonna lie. I didn't think I can talk for 40 minutes by myself, but I did make sure to take my notes and to review them because I wanted to make sure that I, as best as possible, elaborated and was eloquent enough to discuss what happened in this episode. Overall, my final grade for TNA Wrestling last night, I gave it a grade of a B for our report card that went up this morning. And my reasoning for this is that I thought a lot of the matches were very solid. They were either really good in ring or they did continue and set up the story wise. I do think the weakest parts of the night, though, definitely were a lot of the backstage segments, especially with the Daria and Santino stuff. But again, we kept propelling storylines. It led to more matches being made for Sacrifice, which will be happening next Friday. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But that's going to be it for us here tonight. And that's it for BC WrestlePod this week. This was another fantastic week. If you have not done so already, let me give you a quick recap of everything that has gone down this week for us here at BC WrestlePod. And you can check all that stuff up. So this week was a really fun one. We, on this past Tuesday, we did a post show for AEW Revolution. So go check that out. Then, of course, we also had our CMLL post show that was on Wednesday. We had our Mystery Wrestling 22 post show yesterday. And then tonight we have our TNA post show with the edited version going up tomorrow afternoon / evening at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, we have a packed week next week too because it's going to be a big one. On Monday, myself and Benny and hopefully our other co-hosts of the Strong Style Syndicate will be here to review the finals of the New Japan Cup and as well as the show for the New Japan Cup finals, which should be really, really fun to talk about, I hope, which is leading us into Sakura Genesis, the next the big show for New Japan and setting us up for the spring, leading us into the best of the Super Juniors as well. Then we have our AEW post show, NXT post show, CMLL post show, and then on Friday we have our TNA post show where we will be, talking about the go home and then making our predictions for Sacrifice, which is happening next Friday. And then everybody needs to strap in because April will be upon us, and it is a jam-packed season from a bunch of pay-per-views to our third annual WrestleMania Hell Week, where we take WrestleMania and the independent scene by storm, as we have a lot of fun stuff planned for y'all. So make sure you tune in and stay tuned to the social medias for all that information. But my name is Mikey, also El Jefe of BC WrestlePod, and I got to get up on out of here. So thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Takedown Troop. Hopefully, I will have the whole crew with me next Friday as we do the go home post show and our predictions for TNA Sacrifice. But until next week, from all of us here at BC WrestlePod, to you at home, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you Monday to kick us off with another exciting week of shows here at BC WrestlePod. But until then, sayonara, adios, and until next time, peace.